And for this new panel, we have GM from Dragonfly as the moderator. And we have Brandon from AI Arena, Yijia from Curio, David from Blockworks, and Major from Matrix as the panelists. So it's time to hear more about gaming. Let's give a warm welcome to them.
All right, cool. Let's get started. So thanks, everyone. This is the second gaming panel, and we have this great opportunity to have with us a couple of really talented builders, really building kind of defining the next generation of Web3 games. So before you get started, very brief self-intro. My name is GM. I'm a partner at Dragonfly. Dragonfly, we are a global crypto venture fund. And I would like to go around the table and ask everyone to introduce who you are and what you're building. Right?
Hi, everyone. My name is Yijia. I'm one of the co-founders for Curio Research. We are a on-chain game company, a hybrid game and infrastructure company, pioneering the space of on-chain games. So hopefully we'll get a lot of questions there. Yeah, our first commercial game will come live early next year. It's a social diplomacy strategy game.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Brandon. I'm the CEO and CTO of AI Arena. We're making a PvP platform fighting game where the core loop is actually to train an AI to fight on behalf of you.
Hello, everyone. This is Moderator, co-founder of Matrix, and we are striving to deliver a trilogy game or multi-episode games with unified worldview story, essentially focused on hundreds of years of a war between centralized data cartel and decentralized resistant troops. And we want to use this kind of a trilogy game to prove the transferability and interoperability of NFT technologies. At the same time, meantime, we will encourage the creator economy based on the community governance and to share the revenue stream with the content co-creators. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Johansson. I'm co-founder and CEO of Metaking Studios. We're working on a game called Block Lords. Block Lords is a medieval MMO grand strategy game designed essentially around creating a medieval life for any user. You start off as a farmer, you gather resources, you grow in power, you build armies, you attack each other. At the top of the funnel, you have lords. The lords collect taxes from players who farm on their lands and go to war against each other. And then it's all tied around the dynasty system where heroes actually die and you need to get married and have children to keep your legacy going.
So before we kickstart with the conversation, I'd like to really kind of hear how would you define the term Web3 gaming, like in your own opinion? Because I feel like it's a oftentimes very overloaded term, especially for Yijia. We've heard there's a lot of discussions for like fully on-chain games. So, I would also for you to take the chance to make the case, for fully on-chain games, which I believe might be, how you would define Web3 games. So.
Sure. Yeah, I think generally my take is that there are different levels in which a game can use Web3 and crypto. I think the lowest or like the using in the least sense would be having assets on-chain, right, which is the majority of crypto games that we've seen. I think one level above that, you can have some part of the logic on-chain, right? A lot of games have some of the part of their logic on-chain, whereas the quest system or some other peripheral system is off-chain. And then one level above that, you can have all of the logic that is using the blockchain as the server. So all the logic and state happens on-chain. And I can talk briefly about like the benefits. So for the benefits that we recognize are two. the first one is really the security and trust for players, right? So if you have a game world that contains a lot of value, let's say players have staked in tens of thousands or millions of dollars worth of asset. If you have a game mechanism where PvP happens, or even PvE happens, I would argue, where the probability actually can affect the end result, then having logic on-chain is a great way to convince players to participate, right? So that's the first. I can elaborate. And then the second big use case that we've discovered or observed and discovered is the ability to use smart contracts to express social relations and interactions in especially MMO type of worlds. And yeah, I'll elaborate on those later, but those are the two things that we're most bullish in when it comes to fully on-chain, logic on-chain games.
So I think like that's the pinnacle of like Web3 gaming. We don't do it to that extent. Our main focus is on using Web3 as a structure for aligning incentives better, specifically on distributing rewards globally on a larger scale, as well as value accrual in certain assets, which I can talk about how we do it later.
To us, creator economy is the most essential part, and also the community governance, because in order for a game to be sustainable and for the next 10 to 20 years, we should not depend only on the developers themselves, but also on the efforts of the community. So we have to strive for, try all of our best efforts to incentivize the creator economy. Of course, the Web2 gaming community and developers talked a lot about the creator economy too, but lacks of such tool and design to really develop our creator economy. So blockchain, as well, alongside with the crypto economy, I think is the best, one of the best incentives really to incentivize the creator economy, and so that from the very beginning, you could use a kind of a centralized way in order to lay down the very groundwork, the framework for the whole community system. And later on, you could just make the whole system little by little more decentralized, and ultimately to hand over all of the governance and the decision making of the new contents, including the new maps, dungeons, and avatars and gameplays, and also worldview stories. You could hand over those decision making rights back to the gamers, to the creators, to the community. And these, in order to achieve these, you could just create this kind of ecosystem involving all of the community members to try to make all of these floats. And this is a this is a fair game. And I think maybe in 5 to 10 years, maybe we should not still talk about the Web3 game, because this is the future of the game. So we should not differentiate anymore between Web2 games and Web3 games, because all of the games should have these kind of features. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what's been said. I think definitely there are some like obvious reasons to like Web3. One is asset ownership. You know, your wallet, your assets, you control them. You can sell them, you can transfer them, you can burn them. Whatever you want to do, you can do it as long as it's on chain. And then definitely, as much as we like to hide it, you know, the access to liquidity is important. It is important that you as a player, your experience, your assets, your tokens, whatever you do inside of game, if that asset has access to a liquidity pool or to a market of some sort, that is going to create an additional layer of incentives for users. That said, while we do think those two parts are extremely important, we also think that the actual protocol or the backend or the solution that you're building the Web3 elements of your game on are not that important for most users. Most gamers just want to play a game, they want to be entertained, they want to stay in the game and, you know, become part of the community as long as possible. So as we were building our infrastructure, our portal as we call it, we wanted to make sure that users could play the game as frictionless as possible, and then when they were ready, they could then mint their assets on the chain of their choice. So currently we support Immutable, we support Polygon, but the idea is to not lock in the user into one specific protocol. It's really to give them access to wherever they want to go, wherever there are users, wherever there are liquidity. The game is just a tool to get their asset where they want it.
So I've had a couple of conversations, and I realized there are a lot of folks, obviously, who's kind of on the fence on observing Web3 gaming, and would love to hear like all of you guys' story. Like, what drew you into Web3 gaming, and like, is there a particular moment, is there a particular game that really like clicked for you, right, and solidified your conviction? Here's what I want to build. Is there any stories? I believe the audience would love to hear the stories for each one of you.
I mean, I can start. I got into crypto in 2017 as a retail investor. I bought some Bitcoin, fell in love with it. Got some Ethereum, started understanding smart contracts. When I got into, I was already a game developer, so I knew gaming and crypto would be the perfect match. You know, gamers love, managing their resources, finding the optimal yield. I came from strategy games as well, so just this idea of, okay, tokenized assets and gamers made perfect sense. So for me, when it clicked was really when the NFT was invented. I played CryptoKitties, made some cats, and I was like, okay, I'm going all in, and I started my studio a few months later.
Thank you. Yeah, I also entered into this sector since 2017, and especially when listening to your speech of industry OG, very famous in Shanghai in January 2017, and also participating several very high-profile ICO, got very good financial return. But I think CryptoKitties really opens the way for us to realize that there's not just a financial speculation in this sector, but also you could just create some kind of an open-end economy like CryptoKitties and the crypto hats. Especially in that when we look through the success of CryptoKitties, you will see another company called Crypto Hats to create those hats for those kitties. And this really forms a very complete ecosystem. And this is just the first try. The second try is, of course, the stellar rise of the Axie Infinity. Our strategic investor, our seed round investor, Hannah, just told me to draft a strategy for them to be fully invested in Metaverse. And I said at that time, 2 years ago, to invest heavily in IPs and avatar technologies. However, we found that gaming was very important in monetizing these heavy assets and also producing recurring cash flows. But if you want to dive deeply into the Web2 gaming economy, we will find it very difficult for startup to succeed. However, we found that Web3 investors, Web3 traders, users are extremely high net worth individuals compared to those Web2 users. So for gaming studio, even though you don't believe ultimately in decentralization, there are a lot of people in this industry. We have to admit that they don't believe in the ultimate decentralization, but still, it is a better market, much better market for compared to Web2 markets to start in terms of a startup studio. So much higher chance to succeed. And that's why we choose to start from the Web3 gaming industry, especially in that we really want to promote the very native industry values such as data integrity, decentralization, and privacy protection. However, not through those kind of words and mouth propaganda, but from the distribution of our gamings and the contents and the movies, etc. In this way, we think it's much more likely to promote this kind of industry native value and content to the people in the worldwide. And also, I think the most exciting moment for me in this sector is in January 2022, when extremely high net worth, ultra high net worth individual asked me for the progress of the blockchain industry because he remains always skeptical since years about the progress of this industry because he only believes in those killer apps. When I told him about the latest progress of Steppen, he becomes so excited about that. And 3 days later, he told me that he thought there is really high chance that this industry could succeed. And also, last summer, when I had the chance to dinner together with Vitalik Buterin in the Chinese restaurants in Mountain View. We asked him what exactly could blockchain do other than just facilitating financial transactions and financial speculation. And he said at first moment, he did not know. He did not have any idea. But he added that that could be, the next thing could probably be gaming. Thank you.
For me, it wasn't necessarily looking at another game. It was just understanding what NFTs were. That really made it click. Bit of background, I used to be a quant. I used to lead machine learning at a fund. And when I really dug into NFTs, I realized they're just these digital containers for anything that's unique and has value. And it kind of clicked. I was like, oh, the thing that I make that's unique and has value is these machine learning models. So let me try and tokenize AI. And I thought an excellent use case, because on my spare time I used to build machine learning algorithms for games, was to basically create a game for AIs to compete against each other. And it had to be PvP because I think I mentioned before, Web3 is great for creating these things for value accrual, right? And if you want to prove the value of this thing, this machine learning algorithm versus another one, let's have them compete against each other, and you can see which one's the better one. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how it started. And games have the added benefit of abstracting away complexity. So if we wanted a lot of people to use this, we needed a way for not everyone to kind of be intimidated by a lot of the machine learning, like lingo and stuff like that.
So in April 2022, I left my previous company where I was leading the tech backend. And I was pretty lost, honestly, about life. And I went to a Buddhist monastery for a week and learned wrote my first lines with Solidity and read proof of stake papers. And there was not one moment, there's several moments. So first was seeing things like Axie get a lot of usage and hype back in July 2022. And then it was Dark Forest. Dark Forest was a huge one. So I believe the round 6 started in September, October. There was a huge amount of plugins compared to the actual active players of Dark Forest. So Dark Forest was the first fully on-chain game, MMORTS, where players basically conquered planets and hold an empire. And the game is super interesting, right? Nobody thought that Ethereum or EVM can support such a complex game. It's not that complex, but still a fairly complex game. And that many people will contribute code and plugins to it. This ratio is the highest I've seen, even compared to some of the mod-heavy games in traditional games. Now, there were also issues, right? There were so many people that were talking about Dark Forest, but the daily active players were never exceeding 1,000, if I believe correctly. And lots of people were just saying, God, I can't play this game, even though I want to, right? The command line interface, the non-intuitive, just game rules, a lot of the UX issues. And then also, actually, if you dig deep into the plugins, the game plugins, most of them are on the front-end level. They're on the client level. And if you think about it, that's not really unique to Web3, right? If a Web2 game, there are plenty of good Web2 games that are open source. I can't remember, there's the game that's, that are open source and players can write plugins on the front end. The real interesting thing should be allowing players to change or to extend the rules on the contract side. But very few people were doing that. So me and my co-founders started asking why, right? Or how can we improve Web3 on-chain games so that it makes it easier for people to extend the game logic in interesting ways that enhance players' experience? And how do we actually lower the barrier for more people to come in, right? I think a lot of people think of on-chain games as a very niche thing, right? We have those questions, and we thought we are pretty good engineers, so let's give it a try. And there, beginning of everything I talked about 22, it's actually 2021. Starting in January 2022, we started to build demos of on-chain games and then full games afterwards.
It does sound like a lot of us got really inspired, by Axie, Stephen, a lot of the the games that launched earlier, and I feel also chatting with a lot of audience Is back in the day when there's market euphoria, right? People always cheered and almost everyone thought, hey, like Web3 gaming is the future of gaming. But I do think right now in this environment, people are starting to question themselves and having second guesses, right? So I do want to for every panelist to share kind of make the case, right, for yourself. What is it? What kind of crypto primitives you're using in your game that you're uniquely leveraging that crypto primitive to give and provide a user experience that's truly unique to crypto that otherwise you wouldn't have achieved that if you were to build your game on a Web2 stack. So I think that would help the audience better understand truly the value of what we're all trying to build here.
Yeah, I'll go. For us, it's really the hero dynasty system. In Blocklords, every hero is an NFT, can be minted as an NFT. That hero will have their own stats. It'll have its own look. They're all AAA 3D models, fully animated. They all have a family banner, which is like their family symbol. They're really beautiful pieces of artwork. And because they have a limited lifespan, it becomes very important that you get married inside the game and have children, right? So this dynasty building element is really enhanced by Web3 because you do have games like Crusader Kings and a few more strategy games where your heroes do die, but it's very easy to recreate a save or to kind of take that character, put them into another game. But with the Web3 element, what we have is really the memory of your hero still solidified in the NFT. So even when your hero die, you do have the dead NFT that's going to be usable inside of the game. You're going to be able to stake it inside of the game. And our goal is actually, in 5 to 10 years, is you're going to be able to take all your dead NFTs from the Blocklords universe and actually use them to play a new game where the dead heroes are all revived. So that's definitely one of our elements. We call it hero permadeath. That makes our game pretty unique in the Web3 front.
Well, in our gaming ecosystem, the NFT are one of the essential parts in that all of the NFTs, especially those generated avatars and all of the weapon skins, they could be carried forward and backwards across the 3 episodes of our game, sharing the same worldview stories. Because users, gamers, would like to really to play across those games. And maybe more likely in the future, some partners, some content providers could just ask us to distribute the content for them, and we would ask them to also to share their gameplay with our NFT holders too. So that is to prove the transferability and the interoperability of the NFT. And also, in order to activate our creator economy system, and especially this community governance in the decision-making process of the new contents, and our governance token system is also an essential part in deciding which kind of a map, which kind of a dungeon, and what ends, what outcomes of our hero squad could become in the future. And that is totally in the hands, the decision-making is totally in the hands of the community members, but not in the hands of developers. And personally, I love a lot the Marvel movie series. I don't like the end that the Iron Man is already dead. So I think for 1,000 times that if this is really in the hands of the community, Iron Man should never be dead. Thank you.
So I think the biggest thing is allowing gamers to monetize in a very different way. I've mentioned a lot of times this value accrual and the NFT concept, but really what we're doing is, so we're using machine learning so that the NFT acquires the skills of the user. And you can do some really, really cool stuff like that. For one is it's a competitive game, so if it truly is really good at competing, the gamer can actually monetize by selling this thing because it battles autonomously. But you can do a lot of other stuff too. Like you can actually license out the ability to use it as a training partner. Like the analogy is imagine LeBron James was able to get a bunch of robots, teach it how to play ball, and then he can send those out to various people that they can use to then coach and get better at playing basketball. So by basically allowing us to capture their skill set on chain, and this thing can act autonomously, they can monetize in a lot of like really cool ways that they couldn't in Web2 because the financial rails are awful.
Yeah, I'm going to elaborate on the 2 points I mentioned earlier, which are the 2 biggest reasons why I think players will be attracted to on-chain games specifically. The first is high-stake competition. So I believe on-chain games provide the best type of arena for players who are looking to compete with other players fairly and verifiably, right, with a lot of stake. If you, let's say, play StarCraft or if you play Dota today in real life, right, you either kind of compete, you kind of start a pool with friends and compete there, like under the shadow, or you participate in esports and compete for millions of dollars. There's really nothing in between. And really game companies, it kind of hurts for both gamers and game companies because companies don't benefit from the take rate that from the players' competition. And obviously players derive much less fun from playing these games. Think of playing poker without money, for example, right? And I think on-chain games is a way to bootstrap new types of games that are suitable to these high-stake competition environment and genre, right? Like we won't be limited to just poker and mahjong and like wolf game and like these very limited genre of games. We can have games that actually feel like games, RTS, FPS, whatever you name it, in a very fair and highly competitive environment with a lot of stake. So that's something that on-chain game, and why does it have to be logic on-chain? Because logic on-chain really means the assets are governed, not only held on-chain, right? The rules around changing metadata, changing hands of the assets are all on-chain, which means they're verifiable. So that's the first. And the second is a bit down the line, but also I think maybe potentially more important, is the ability to craft arbitrary social interactions in a way that the game engine understands. So I analogize this as kind of to the real world law enforcement layer, right? We already have digital assets which are comparable to real world assets. They're very valuable. People care about them. They don't want to lose their NFTs. So now, if we look at like traditional multiplayer games, how do players interact with each other? They're often limited to the game company's social model, or like the social model that the game company forced them to participate in, right? Whether it's like pure competition in StarCraft or like pure alliances in things like games like Rise of Kingdoms, or World of Warcraft, these type of games. There's nothing between collaboration and cooperation, typically. There's very few exceptions. EVE Online is like kind of an exception, though not really. In Web3 games and eventually like on-chain MMOs, what we'll see are emergent social organizations in the form of smart contracts acting as social contracts. This we've already validated with our game that launched this January called Treaty, which it's a 4X game that allowed people to essentially draft up social contracts like non-aggression pact, embargo pact, and that goes into effect the game engine, right? Because smart contracts automatically get executed and they tied to your NFTs, to your tokens. When that gets, when the virtual world becomes more complex, this piece gets infinitely more important and interesting. Think of like the real world without the corporate laws, for example. Like we wouldn't be here, right? We wouldn't be doing so many interesting things. And that's, I think, one of the biggest unlocks of fully on-chain games.
So we've all kind of discussed the promised land, right? The bright side of, hey, using and building Web3 games, really enables, in each of your cases, like a unique experience for your users. And what about the downsides? So I think because the reason I want to ask that is because there's also a lot of infrastructure builders today with us, and I think they would take a lot of inspirations hearing from, hey, during your development the process of building a Web3 game, which part of the tech stack you're most frustrated with, and are there anything that you wish you could see improvements on that would make your lives easier?
Everything? I can start. So, yeah, there are a lot of pieces a lot of components of the tech that we're dissatisfied with. Number one is just the, as fully on-chain games, probably unique to us, the backend engine, or like the engine, as people call it, in on-chain game space. Really, like the key problem is that the most popular VMs, like EVMs, Darknet, Solana, these VMs are not made for games, right? They don't have built-in parallelization. They don't have game tick. There's a lack of game libraries, and it typically have very bad performance if you want to build relatively fast games, multiplayer games. So that's why we built Keystone. It's really a piece of infrastructure that allows us to patch the problem there and to build actually fast games while maintaining the composability and the verifiability. And then a problem that probably is shared among a lot of our projects is like the onboarding user experience, the wallets, the cross-chain, all that kind of stuff. So I'll leave you guys to it because a lot of you have launched already.
Yeah, I can add to that. So one thing about the tech that's really frustrating, still very frustrating, is so initially I wanted to store the neural networks on chain. It was feasible when the game was a lot simpler and you had small neural networks. Obviously, as we started making the game more complex, that's not feasible. It took like 20 transactions to push one neural network on chain, and if users are constantly updating it, it's just not feasible. So then we put it on IPFS. That's also not great because when we just push it to IPFS, it takes like 15 minutes to retrieve, and users can't actually use the model. So like we're forced to have redundancies and just basically pull the model from our own centralized databases. So those are some of the annoying things. Like you said, onboarding. In addition to just the tech for onboarding, just a lot of Web2 gamers, as soon as they hear Web3, they just run away, even if they like the game. So that's a big difficulty.
Well, there are a lot of difficulties in developing and especially in promoting a very successful Web3 games, because you have to attract not only those Web3 users but also those Web2 gamers. But most of the important issue, I think, is still the issue of the gas fees, because this is really counterintuitive to convince a gamer to play your game, but before playing your game or before transferring his NFTs, before accessing your game, he has to pay some kind of a gas fees. It's not about the cost of the gas fee, whether it's high or low. Even if it is extremely low, it is still counterintuitive that he has to pay something upfront. So it is really counter-natural. But we understand that gas fee is also very important in making the whole network efficient and also making that safe. But we are looking for ways really to solve this issue with all potential partners, especially in that we know that there are a lot of sidechain solutions and also layer 2 solutions. But the issue is that more than 80% of the total transaction volumes of the whole NFT markets are generated by VIP clients and institutional players, not by retail. So retails represent around 95% of the total transaction number of the NFT market, but less than 20% of the total transaction volumes. That is to say, in order to make your gaming economy sustainable, you have to really identify and attract those VIPs, those high net worth individuals and institutional players to come to access your game and to trade your NFTs. But these kind of people, I think most of them are still in the mainnet, not in layer 2, not in sidechains. So if some chain solution providers could really attract these kind of high net worth individuals, I think they will attract most of the users and most of the popular games too. And also, if someone could really provide a solution to decrease significantly those gas fees in the mainnet, I think there's a great solution too. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. There are a lot of challenges on the technical side, on making sure everything's synced. On the community side, there are a lot of issues as well. You end up with a player base whose main purpose with playing your game is profits rather than just having fun, which does also create issues when you're trying to build a healthy, thriving community. But on top of it, I think at the end of the day, the biggest problem is distribution. When you look at platforms like Steam being completely shut turned off for games, that does become a problem, because that's where most of the PC market is, right? Same with Apple, Google. But the good part is we're starting to see that shift, right? For ourselves, Blocklords, we're on Epic Game Store. We're actually going live with our open beta in the coming week. So please wish list, please play it. But I think this is what we're also going to see in the next few years, is we're going to see way more games trying or maybe even succeeding in going on Steam. We're going to see more users being drawn into those, via those mainstream platform, into trying Web3 elements of games, whether it's NFTs, whether it's tokens, whether it's just a back end. And hopefully within a few years, we can start moving towards a world where people aren't scared of the word Web3 or NFT like they were with Creator League, right? And there are going to be some projects where it literally doesn't matter. And yeah, in the future, as it's been said before, it's not going to matter if it's Web 2 or Web 3. It's just going to be a game, and there's going to be liquidity, and it's whether you want to access it or not.
I want to add a small piece to the distribution point you brought up, which is like where you put the first paywall to players, right? It's actually a very tough decision for Web3. Typically, because if you put it before all the players, all the experience, then you risk losing a lot of players before they even try your game, right? Where if you put them like after some experience, then you fear that they won't buy your NFTs at that, like, because they already kind of try out the game. So yeah, that's also a challenge, I think, faced by a lot of games.
So one last thing before we wrap it up. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but what's new, in your guys' pipeline? Where can people find you? Are there any exciting updates that people should be looking forward to?
Sure, I can start. So yeah, we're building our first game, as I mentioned earlier. It won't be just a proof of concept like before, which we've done twice. The game's in alpha development, and we will launch the game beginning of next year. And the best way to follow us would be on Twitter. It's 0xcurio. For those of you game developers, we're also building Keystone, which is, it's very specific. It's basically an infra stack for building on-chain games. Basically helps you connect the logic to the blockchain, or like build the logic on in an interoperable way with the EVM, and also to have the infrastructure where players can verify the game progression. So if you're interested in using or contributing, definitely check it out or talk to me as well.
In terms of updates, yeah, we're actively doing playtests. So if you're interested in testing out the game, you can follow us on Twitter and join our Discord. As soon as you join our Discord, you can just like hit up one of the mods, say I want to try it out, and then they'll pipe you into like a funnel that we have for people that want to try out the game. And eventually you can enter our competitions. We have competitions on a frequent basis where if you place in the top N%, we actually just give out our NFTs. So yeah, check us out.
As one of the most popular games in this universe, our first episode of Matrix 5 is essentially a mobile FPS game, CSGO style. And we just finished the second large-scale online test, the alpha test, and got tremendous results, tremendous success, with more than 200,000 registered users and more than 100,000 downloads. And we will probably launch the beta test, the last test before the official launch during Q4 this year. And the official launch is due around the end of this year or the debut of next year. And also the battle royale part of our game, that is to say the PUBG style game, is also already under development. And probably before the end of next year, you will see the PUBG style game of Matrix 5. Thank you.
And as mentioned, Blocklords is going on the Epic Game Store this week, so please wishlist, download. The game will be free. There's dozens of resources to mine, dozens of squad to choose from. We're going to have bears attack you, so you can go and truly live out your fantasies of killing a bear. That's the reason I made the game. And a free NFT hero to anybody who plays. So please come join the Blocklords universe.
Awesome. Thank you so much. A round of applause for our panelists. Thank you.